Hi AP, this is planning assistance for your 1.1 project, which is that Dramatic Emojis Revisited, where we are using abstractions to create functions for the different faces of our emojis. And I have just gotten a lot of questions about this, and I know for some of us, like, learning all these new skills and then trying to comprehend the instructions, it just doesn't always compute. And this is just a really rough spot for remote learning because it's hard for me to anticipate where all those sticking places are all the time. So this is just me breaking it down for anyone who might be a little bit behind and is still working on that project or is still confused, and especially anyone who is planning on catching up with that project over break. I understand some of us needed a breather, and I just want to make sure we have the tools and equipment to do that. So here's what you are asked to do in this program. You are asked to create 6 custom functions. You guys have already done one custom function at the end of 1.0. If you are not sure what I'm talking about, you should be going back to 1.0 and looking at that custom function because you are doing the same thing 6 times. Every one of the 6 that you are doing is going to be a different face for 3 emojis on your screen. So I have 3 little blank emojis right here. I'm not filling faces in because y'all, right now I'm on Jamboard. I'm not going to take time to make a face for each of these. We're going to have to use our imagination. But let's just say that for this red one, I want it to swap between a happy face and a sad face, right? Pretty easy. That means that somewhere in my code, the very first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to define what the function happy face should do. Boop, boop, boop. All my code would be here. And I would need to make that definition and just test it to make sure it works, very much the same we did at the end of 1.0. So again, if like the end of 1.0 didn't go well for you, reach out to me for help. I will help you. That would be my first step towards that emoji. The second thing I would need to do is figure out what does it mean to draw a sad face, and I would need to make a function for that I know draws the sad face. Now I want to just name for you guys, I'm using pseudocode throughout this whole planning page, so please do not try and take anything that I have written and like run with it for yourself. But use 1.0. I had like that draw heart that we did live. I had that draw smiley. That draw smiley that I did together in the code along, maybe that's one of my functions, right? Maybe it switches between draw smiley and sad face. Like those could be options for me. But the first thing I need to do is make my abstractions, make sure they work in draw. Maybe they need some arguments that they can take in so I can draw it at different positions, whatever, that is fine. Once I have figured out the 2 functions that it is switching between, it's going to be as easy as writing a conditional that looks something like this, probably using the collide library. If mouse is touching circle, make my happy face. Otherwise, make my sad face. That would be my goal. Now, again, you guys, you know this is pseudocode. I can't go plug this into JavaScript. But what I can do is figure out what is the code, probably using the collide library, that will tell me if my mouse is touching my circle. And then once that's happening, draw this happy face function. What is the code that makes my sad face function? Plug that in right there. Use my function. Use the abstraction I already wrote. Then I would repeat that process for each of these other 2 circles. So I would make 2 more functions for this guy. Maybe this one switches between angry and excited. And then I would make a similar conditional of if my mouse is now touching this circle, maybe it gets excited, and if my mouse isn't touching this circle, it gets angry. And I would do the same thing for my last circle, 2 more functions that it's going to swap between, and then I'm going to have one condition for if my mouse is touching the circle, use one of my functions to draw a face, otherwise use the other function to draw a face. Now, some things I just want to call out. Some of you are feeling very overwhelmed because this is a longer project. It involves 6 functions and it involves you writing 3 conditional blocks, 1 for each emoji. Do not try and do this all at once. We're going to talk more about this as the year goes on, but we are exercising something called problem decomposition. We are breaking this problem down into little bite-sized chunks, and we are focusing on one bite-sized chunk at a time. We are not trying to make everything work at once. 1 function at a time, 1 emoji at a time, okay? When you are writing these into real code and not pseudocode, I should still just see a single function call inside of your conditionals. If you have some if, collide, point, circle, whatever, and then you have like 1,000 shapes inside of it, I don't think you actually made the abstraction. All of that stuff that you're using to make a face should be abstracted out into a function, so you can just call the name of that function, possibly with some arguments, depending on if you are changing things about it, like the position or the size or the color or whatever, possibly without some arguments. I don't know what you're doing. And that is like what we are practicing here. This is your practice at writing 6 abstractions and using those conditional blocks. Okay, guys? So I hope this clears it up a little bit for you. If you're still struggling with things, you're always welcome to reach out to me. Just know that over break, you're not always going to get a hold of me as quickly as you do during the school day, okay? Good luck, guys.